All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Dudes Talking. Your thoughts are not always your own with Neil Sanders. Here with me, I have my esteemed guest, Neil Sanders. How are you doing this fine day, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, anytime, Neil. Anytime, man.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh, yes. So, yes, always a pleasure to have you here. And so, what do you guys think about? Well, Neil, let me ask you. What do you think about what's going on as far as today with the radicalization that is occurring on echo chambers like Parlor on social media?
Parler.
And, yeah,
Free speech.
So Twitter, it is a toxic place, as most social media is. But it does provide a platform for people to get their ideas and views out to as well, which is necessary if we're going to have the internet. Then it is what it is, But you would think that Parler, since they advocate, being very pro free speech, where some people on Twitter get banned for what they say, or maybe positions that they held, or maybe anything that they may say might not be able to be retweeted or liked. That happens, and yes, they are a corporation. Therefore, the First Amendment does not apply to them. Now, some people may argue that Twitter is a public necessity now in our modern age. Therefore, since it makes it a public utility, then it is regulated by the First Amendment. However, that decision has not been made in the court systems, and the government has not, decided that it. The FCC has not decided it to be a public utility. What are your thoughts on that first, before we start digging into Parler and discuss the connections and why you probably don't want to be on it? Granted, you probably don't want to be on it on Twitter either, to be honest with you. But Parler's a little bit more nefarious going on with what they require for you to join Parler. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just a tricky one, that one, really, isn't it? I mean, I can totally see the argument that that things like Twitter, Facebook, or social media should be. They are so ubiquitous now, aren't they? Basically, I could totally get the argument that they should be a utility and everybody should be afforded access to them. The problem is that basically it also gives a sort of an opportunity and a platform to spread nonsense. And like the thing about spreading nonsense is it very much depends on what sort of, which end of the wedge you're on, whether you're just doing it because you're misinformed, or you're mistaken, or that you genuinely think that and your opinion is wrong, or whether, it's complicated by things like Cambridge Analytica, really, isn't it? Basically, like when we've got huge amounts of money and basically entire political campaigns that are predicated on false information being passed around the internet and creating narratives and creating stories and creating folk heroes. And so it's a very, very tricky thing, really, because as much as it is distasteful, and everything in my sort of like initially says to me like, no, you mustn't do that, you can't deplatform people, you've got to argue their point and expose their nonsense by having it in the public domain. But it does actually work. Like it is the other argument is that it can certainly drive messages down, and you've seen by deplatforming people say like Milo Yiannopoulos and stuff like that they've just it's ended their career. I mean, also the Mercers took away his money.
Well, that's the main thing. That's the main thing. The Mercers took away his money, and he's not too happy about that. But go ahead.
But I mean this. But this is the point. When you've got people like that who are very charismatic and have got a very sort of, saleable personality and particularly fit into this sort of shock culture internet thing, and you've got money behind it, this is where it starts getting nefarious. And it's just, I don't know. Where do you fall on it? Like, what do you think, John? Do you think there should be any regulation at all, or what? I mean, you can't deny that at the minute, unfortunately, basically, well, whether it's unfortunately or not, Twitter has got a right to deplatform people.
Well, as a corporation, yes, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube can too. I'm using YouTube right now, but technically they do have the ability. Now, some people may argue that they might add something in, like you can't discuss the election results Actually, George from CavDev.org was getting a little worried because the way they word it, Neil, was that I couldn't even have him on to discuss the history of election rigging in America for the past like two
really?
decades. You know, so they kind of left it ambiguous. It wasn't to just this election. You could even discuss that there was election fraud even in this election, either which way. You know, if it went to Trump or if it, you know, and some went to Biden, you couldn't do that. You know, so
And that's where it's problematical, isn't it? Because it's like who is at the sort of top of it? You know, what is the message that Facebook or Twitter or whoever wants to actually push and allow? And I think what's really strange about that as well is because of the sort of echo chamber nature of these things, I don't think anybody really gets a real picture of what's being banned. Do you know what I mean? Because you only see the things being banned that you were watching anyway. Or then occasionally you'll hear about sort of a big name, like, you know, a sort of a pro-Palestine thing will be taken off Twitter, or, you know, an Alex Jones or David Icke or somebody like that will be taken off Twitter, and that'll be framed as, or you know, with Alex Jones, it definitely is right wing. Like, but do you know what I mean? So it's very difficult to know. I know the obvious thing that most people would say is, well, this is obviously left-wing purging, isn't it? It's like, I'm not really sure that it is, because you do see an awful lot of I think it's politically driven. Yeah. I know that sounds stupid because like left wing and right wing is political, but I think it very much depends on the story at the time. Because to say that for every time that say Alex Jones or David Icke or someone like that gets deplatformed, we've recently had huge sort of battles in the UK with Facebook and in America as well. Because again, like part of the Trump campaign and part of the Boris Johnson sort of pro-Brexit campaign is to spread disinformation and to spread misinformation in order to, you know, to bolster a sort of hyper-real version of the world. And they were perfectly sort of happy to let that slide. So it's a tricky one. Like, I mean, again, I just said this is like, because I'm not sure that there is such a thing as a free speech absolutist, really, because like.
Even I have my limits. You can't threaten someone's life.
Exactly.
Or you can't, view or share or pass around rape pornography or bestiality or child pornography. You know, those things.
Slander people.
Those things are, you can't outright slander people either. Even though the United States has some of the loosest libel and slander laws in the world because of our First Amendment, but I mean, you can't harass someone or tell nefarious lies that could destroy them on purpose. If we're going by the First Amendment. So, I'm not a complete free speech absolutist in that regard, because I do believe that there should be times where speech should be curtailed. However, I do think in the hyper politicized polarity, world that we live in, it's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the problem is as well, though, it's like, it's ridiculous on both sides of the argument. Like, you've got people that say, if there's a fact check article that says something, oh, well, that, or if something does get removed because it's got false information, some will now take that as a sort of badge of validation. It's like,
yes, which could be a problem, right? Because
it's a massive problem.
Yeah, because then all of a, I mean, that's what happened to Alex Jones. Not to cut you off, Neil. When he got deplatformed, all the traffic that used to be divvied up between YouTube and Twitter or whatever shunted straightly to the InfoWars app, and then later banned .video. Where now Jones, when you had to install the InfoWars app, it asked if it said it's going to take your data, right? So now they got the CMP's got your information, so it's kind of funneling people away. And look, Alex Jones lost hardly any numbers, in my opinion, or viewers when he got deplatformed. He's probably about the same, roughly, give or take, now more than ever, right? So it's just interesting of how they frame it as persecuted, Alex Jones, when all it did was just funnel more people direct to InfoWars, and did the Barbara Streisand effect, where now people are like, Well, why? Why is why was Alex Jones deplatformed? Was he speaking the truth? Why was David Icke deplatformed? Was he speaking the truth? And then that ends up happening. But you do, however, one last thing, Neil. You do have it on the left too. You mentioned Cambridge Analytica, and you have McChrystal running Defeat Disinfo using data programs and that they used on the war against ISIS, supposedly on the American public. While McChrystal is getting like $1 million contract for the city of Boston to prepare them for the coronavirus. So, it's like we're getting it on all sides. I mean, look at NewsGuard, for example, and this is trusted. This is where you get your news. It's trusted. And it's like, well, okay, well then, look, cybersecurity intelligence misinformation fingerprints, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Department of State. Oh, so that's who we choose? This is the people that NewsGuard gets in bed with. Okay. The World Health Organization. Yeah. But then you would think, okay, so who runs NewsGuard, right? That would be your that would be I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. The guy who owned Fox News, the Murdoch family.
Oh right, yeah. Rupert Murdoch.
So yeah.
Oh dear me. Well, this is the point. The same thing still runs true. That there's a limited amount of people that actually own all the sort of top end of the media. That's not really changed. It's just more sort of outlets at the minute as well. And quite a lot of outlets that people probably don't initially realise, like talk radio that we've got in the UK is Murdoch, and Sky News Australia is heavily it's quite, Sky News in the UK is, and you can see there to sort of the Murdoch bent, but the Australian version is something else. It's absolutely crackers. And yeah, you've got all Spiked Online, which is rather popular. That's that's Koch brothers, I think. Turning Point UK's Koch brothers.
The BBC though, however, is the BBC doesn't have a right slant, does it?
The BBC does. This is very strange, right? Because the BBC manages to offend almost everybody by basically, there's enough on there for people to say, oh, look at these lefty wishy-washy blah blah blahs, but on the same time they've given a platform to Nigel Farage. He's the most used guest on Newsnight. Is it Newsnight or Question Time? Question Time, sorry. And there's always a platform for crying out loud, the Laura Kuenssberg, who is essentially one of the political sort of journalists for the BBC. She is such a government lickspittle, and specifically a champion for anything and everything that Boris Johnson does. And if she's not a spy or something to do with intelligence, I'll be very, very surprised, because she just constantly, anything and everything he does, she spins it. She's like that McInerney woman, is for Trump. But basically she's supposed to be a journalist, and it's just outrageous. So this is the thing about the BBC. Let me ask
you about the BBC, because you understand way more about United Kingdom than I do. Let me ask you something. So here in the United States, we used to have United States-driven news. It was called Voice of America. However, it couldn't broadcast on American soil until the early 2000s, when they modernized the Smith-Mundt Act under Obama, that then allowed Voice of America and Radio Free Liberty and Radio Free Liberty Europe and Radio Free Liberty Asia to be broadcast on United States soil, which is pretty much the United States propaganda machine, just like the BBC could be considered the United Kingdom's propaganda machine, their state propaganda
Absolutely,
machine, right?
Yeah.
So has the BBC always been that way?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Well, essentially, when it was founded by a gentleman called Lord Reith. Crikey, I'm thinking back to my media studies now. And the whole point was to entertain and educate, but in a certain way. There was always certain standards that the BBC sought to adhere to, supposedly, like a tone of voice and accent, the proper austere British accent and stuff like that. And it wasn't until very much later when BBC Two became a sort of alternative. There was ITV, which is the sort of considered the more lowbrow channel, and then there's Channel 4, which is considered the sort of snobby intellectual channel, and then there's Channel 5 now, which is like basically just trash. But yeah, very much so. The BBC is considered an institution. We call it auntie. That it is affectionately, or I don't know if
they do in Australia as well.
Oh, they do in Australia as well, apparently. But basically, yeah, the BBC as an entity is referred to as auntie, and it's a very strange thing, really, because basically for as much as it totally is a propaganda institution, it's never going to reveal terrible secrets about the royal family, for example.
Yes.
And like denotices are sort of very, very common, and I've spoken about people like Laura Kuenigberg and other reporters who basically just soft soap and really don't get to the crux of stuff. He's got a huge number of scandals, like the covering up of the Jimmy Savile scandal and such like that. But at the same time, the BBC, for example, The Power of Nightmares, which is an Ian Curtis documentary, which was the first documentary to explain that Al-Qaeda wasn't initially a group. It was a sort of constructed in order to arrest certain people under RICO laws and other revelations about how Bin Laden had been working with the British and American governments and such like that. That came from a documentary that was shown on the BBC.
Yeah.
Things like The Thick of It, which basically hilariously sort of skewer the way that politics works in a very, very intelligent and very, very funny way. Satirically sort of really, really ripping apart the government in ways that is really, really insightful, not just funny, and it's really sticking one in the eye. There's other outlets now. Is that crumbs from crumbs from the table? Yes, very possibly, but it's very, very it's a strange and sprawling entity is the BBC.
Yeah. So I guess to circle back to Parler, I came across that there's information released at the Parler. It was always put out front that Dan Bongino was like a major investor in Parler. Okay, like he was like the guy that.
Who is this? Dan Bongino fellow. I keep seeing videos of him, and he looks like a sort of retired MMA guy.
So Dan Bongino used to be he was in the New York Police Department, and he was a former Secret Service agent. And he's written a lot of books on kind of like the left world order. He tweets out every day that the Obama administration was the most corrupt administration ever in the history of the United States of America. Though I'm no fan of Obama in the slightest bit.
No, but that's not.
I would probably say George H.W. Bush, in my opinion, was more. But
yeah,
you could rank the presidents. You could rank them on. Everybody's going to have their list of who they see as more corrupt and who they see as less corrupt or whatever. But go ahead, Neil. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was just agreeing with you. Like you were saying, so this Dan Bon Chappie, what's it like? He's right. So he's is he actually ex-forces or is he
No,
can
he's
he
just ex-police and ex-Secret Service. I don't think that he was in the I don't think he was in the military.
No, right, fair enough.
So he was also in InfoWars a lot, and he was also been platform boosted by Fox News, Sean Hannity, and Mark Levin, and he launched the Bongino report, which is like the conservative antithesis to the Drudge report. I check both. You want to see what's going. You'll see the narratives, just like I check CNN. And of course, it was back in the summer of 2020 that he purchased ownership stake in Parler. But then we found out, however, and it was leaked beforehand, and the news was reporting it. It forced Rebecca Mercer on Parler to come out and said, "Yeah, we are kind of the owners, and we gave the seed money for it." And it's like, oh no, okay, yeah. And then when you go to Parler, of course, you gotta if you to direct message somebody to be verified, so you could direct message someone, you have to give both the front and back of your government issued identification and your social security number if you live in the United States of America.
And the terms and conditions say that basically they will pass this information on to third parties that you feel will be interested in, which basically means that like they are selling your data. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, what was that? There was something else as well. Did it say that you need your social security number on there or something?
Yes, they need your social security number to DM people. Yes, and they claim they won't give that out, but other information.
No, of course they won't.
Other information they will give out. And it is an echo chamber, and people are being deplatformed. They're being banned, even though they say that they're not. I've seen tons and tons of things on Twitter that show it, and the fight between Ron Watkins and Dan Bongino. It's just further proof that a lot of it's theater, and it's just there to trap, mostly, good-hearted conservatives, to further put them in. I think it's would you say it's maybe a next, minor Cambridge Analytica op continuation, Neil?
Oh, well, I mean, it would certainly seem like that. Do you know what I mean? It's got the Mercers all over it. It's basically a place to disseminate information, which you can just tell from what the sort of the run through the through running thread of this information is going to be. They require information that identifies you, which means that basically they can cross-check your use with other platforms that they're checking you with. Yeah. They're going to basically pass this on to people that they think will be interested in it. And come on, it's ridiculous. Aside from the fact that you say it is an echo chamber, I was going to say, well, go on there, go on there and just start reading out Das Kapital. See how long it takes for that video to get taken.
I was thinking about just going on there just to make constant tweets about the CMP, or not tweets. Whatever the Parler equivalent to tweets are. But then when they were like, "Oh yeah, we want your government ID," and then Lord knows what type of tracking, if you put the Parler on your computer on your phone, what type of tracking information that they're going to get. Granted, I guess I have Facebook and Twitter on my phone. It couldn't get much worse than that, am I right? But at least they don't require my social security number and a picture of my government ID. So
it's just out, but. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things, isn't it? That, we're all being tracked to a degree. If you even just have a smartphone, or even a non-smartphone, actually, they can track you off burners if they really want to. So, it's but it's the hypocrisy of pretending to be a free speech platform and being one of the good guys when it's transparently not. It's transparently going to be a sort of rile people up. Come around here. What gets me is that it's 2 minutes of hate, isn't it? Like, it literally is. Come and shout at the nasty man on the screen, and come here because we're going to rile you up and make you angry with righteous anger that tells you that you're right, and that your place in the world is right, and that you know how the world works, and that you're surrounded by like-minded people. And, that just happens to be how you get people into cults. But, all these 1984 metaphors, and people can't see when they're actually being directed to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
and
right.
It's entirely that's the entire mechanism that basically got the Brexit vote and the election of Trump was based on furious anger. Anger at the elites, anger at foreigners, anger at the fact that your life isn't going as well as it might be, and looking for somebody to blame and for somebody who listens to you and will help you along with that. And that's what's so cruel about it as well, is that it's that angle, it's that, oh, but come here because we're your friends. And that's the cruelest part of the manipulation, because it's that community. They're building supposedly a community of like-minded people, warriors, if you will, truth warriors, brave truth warriors that will go out there and take the stones and sticks from other people because they know that basically we're all on the right path, and they're manipulating that to steal your data and to get you to vote in a particular way.
Yeah, I mean, it's But they're always giving that, that fear give and take on both sides, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And then they're using it to because I mean,
Oh Christ, yeah. I mean, on the other side, it's like you've got to do this, or the planet will die, and it's directly your fault. Oh, come on.
yeah, while they go drive, fly around in their private jets and pollute the world in their factories, It's like, oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's your fault. It's your fault that you.
But it's all right. Again, this is the thing. It's okay because we're going to give you a task and an identity. You're going to solve it. That's what you're going to do. And this is what it's infuriating when you see it.
Yeah, very much so.
They're setting up narratives, setting up characters for people or avatars for people, and they're driving you towards places where basically this seems like a nice idea because, you introduced this new thing and all your friends are here and they're doing it. Well, we're all doing it. Oh, we're on board this, are we? Brilliant. Okay, I'm involved now. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's marketing.
Yeah. They're also trying to get repealed Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996.
What's that?
It allows online platforms to have immunity against civil liability for third-party content and for the removal of content under
sound like a good idea.
Certain circumstances. So it's. I don't think it is either. I think anybody who thinks Section 230 should be repealed is mistaken, because. Because Trump's railing about it and he wants it removed, and because he thinks that they'll somehow magically deplatform less people if they're sued or and I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, what will happen is I'll make a tweet and then Twitter is going to be like, we'll post your tweet to Twitter in 3 to 5 days until our lawyers look at your tweet to deem it to be safe enough to be tweeted.
Well, anything where basically relying on the mechanism of litigation to regulate like that is going to result in the people with the most money deciding what is right and what's wrong. Come on, it just doesn't sound like a very good idea at all. And also again, where do you draw the line in what's acceptable? Do you know what I mean? If
he's watching the watchers.
Yes, I know that sounds really, really boring and it's like, come on, you're supposed to be angry, Neil. I am. I don't like censorship. I do not like censorship at all. But the problem is that people are using this concept of this concept of things being censored that basically would be harmful to the government, and they're basically lumping propaganda in with that and saying this can't be propaganda. That's not why it's being banned. It's being banned because it's truth, and that's it's a very clever tactic, piggybacking onto what is actually a very serious issue, that certain voices don't get heard and certain other voices dominate. Mm-hmm. But it's being used in a really, really crafty way. It's almost like sort of cry bullying in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's a false facade, and it's a bait and switch essentially is the point of it. They're going to say something like, well, we need to be able to, you want to say what you want to say, don't you? You don't want other people putting words in your mouth and controlling your lives and blah blah blah, etc., etc., etc. And they say, no, that's fine. So, all right, brilliant, cool. Our product can do this. We're not going to tell you it's got cancer-causing agents in it because free speech, and you can't get mad because we've put it on that platform, so there's no liability. I know this is, I'm taking it to massive extremes, but this is always where it goes with these things, right? Okay, we want small government. That sounds like a good idea. Less of the man looking over my shoulder, and it isn't really, is it? It's not for you. What they're selling, the people who are selling you this, it's not for you, it's for them. And so you've got to think about what it's going to be like for them. So if they say absolutists of free speech, well, that's very, very bad, because the best and brilliantest propagandists in the world who work for the intelligence agencies, government, and Madison Avenue, to generalize, will suddenly have carte blanche to basically utilize their skills against you in all manner of ways that you don't initially know and won't initially realize, purely for profit margins, not to benefit anybody. And that's the problem when you get into profit margins, is that the morals go completely out of the window. And it's the same thing with, like, you know, with a small government and stuff like that. It sounds like a good idea. Of course you want the man off your back, of course you do. But what it really means is that basically small government means that no one's going around and checking if the plant is safe to work at, or whether they're paying you the correct amount, or whether they've got adequate health and safety, or whether they're disposing of their dangerous chemicals in a way that is sufficient, that isn't going to cause direct harm to humans. And that's the annoying thing about all of these things, is because basically I get people's point, and on a very, very base level, of course, this is what you want, but it's
the thing is, we're never going to get anything of what we really truly want, Neil.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, this is the point. It is. I've used this metaphor before, but it's come in the back of my van. There's puppies and candy in there, and there's not puppies and candy in there. It's a very, very different story once you get in the back of that van. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very messed up story once you get in the back of that van. But I mean, we'll never get, like, you know, we most people have their own ideas of what they would feel would be best for, like, national, state, and local government, right? And the sad thing is it doesn't seem like that we're ever going to get that, you know, like, and we can have discussions, you know, like I and myself lean more conservative. However, I do believe that there should be certain governmental regulations. Like, I believe in fair trade instead of free trade. And I also believe in, I believe in, environmental, regulations. But you have to balance it with the need of industry too, as well. Which could be done, but most of the time has nothing to do with limiting industry. It has everything to do with profit margins. So that's where it ends up becoming an issue. But the thing is you and I could argue till we're blue in the face about going round and round and round of what we think the look. You could tell me what your idea of the most ideal United Kingdom, and I would say the most ideal United States of America, in my opinion. But I don't think it's ever going to reach there, you know. And I'm not saying that it's not a loss to discuss these things or to think about these things or want these things, but I'm also saying that we got to balance it out with realizing that certain amount of the crap, we're just going to have to just be vocal about it, protest when we can. And and some of it we're just gonna have to learn to accept and try to work our own ways around it, because they won't be changed.
I don't think you can. Like, this is the problem. Any time that anybody's tried to do like a sort of one size fits all, makes everybody in an entire nation happy, it's communism. And communism doesn't work on a national level like that. They never get to the utopic stage. It always functions as a dictatorship, and it always lowers the standard of living for people rather than raising it.
Yes.
And also, I don't think anybody really wants to be in a society where you have to think the same as everybody else, and because that's totalitarianism. And it is mind control. There's lots of different types of mind control, but this is the problem. Like, in many ways, it's the differences that make the things that you like better. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I like certain types of music, and the fact that lots of people go, "Oh, that's rubbish," or like, "No, I don't like that," or "Oh, it's a bit raucous, isn't it?" That makes me like it even more. Like, and it's that sort of, you know, you can't have light without the dark, etc., 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 etc. So this is tricky. But you know what would be nice though? We don't all have to like agree to have the same ideology or anything like that, or to be drones, or all basically like want to be comrades for the ultimate glory of the state, because I don't agree with any of that. But it'd be nice if everyone was just nice to each other, and not even nice to each other, just like,
we could at least just have conversations with each other without someone wanting to jump across out of the screen and choke someone to death. Just because they believe something. Now, I mean, there are some extremes, right? Like if a pedophile comes out and says, "Oh, it's perfectly fine to love children," no. Yeah, but if it's just a conversation between a liberal and a conservative about universal health care, for the example, or healthcare regulations, we should be able to have those discussions without people being, at each other's throats.
Oh, totally. But I mean, again, this is the problem, okay? And this is where this is the irony of free speech platforms like Parler, because they're not there to encourage this free speech. They're there to create an echo chamber, and they're there to subtly dictate. It's like the concept of polls. They'll sometimes use polls as a way to sort of drive
public opinion one direction or
rather
another,
than to report.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sad.
Do you know what I mean? Like, well, if that's the way that everyone else thinks, I best get on board. And it's the same with BitChute, and it's the same with Parler, and it's the same with all these things. They're relishing in that sort of concept of being a rebel. But I've seen this before. I remember when Breitbart came out being a rebel, and Dave Rubin was a rebel, and Blaze Media was a rebel, and Rebel Media was a rebel. You knew they were rebels because they said it in the name.
Well, they did. You should have known, okay? But they also do whatever Israel says too. So I mean.
Well, this is the point, it's because they're financed by the Horowitz Foundation, the Rosenwalds, and the Mercers, and yeah, this is horrific. This is the annoying thing, is that basically, again, just like we've been saying for a long time, like a lot of what could be considered the truth movement has been hijacked by very, very wealthy people who've seen a sort of ready-made audience, studied them, gone, oh, this is what's going to appeal to people. This is the way we can push buttons. This is the narrative that we can sell, and we know that it will sell because we've been watching these groups for, like, it's like you were saying when we were chatting the other day about the sort of monitoring MUFON and stuff like that. They weren't doing that for no reason. They're trying to see how these group dynamics work. And they're specifically trying to see how they work in response to, like, in the way that it's that social media discourse, and it's like, I think they were looking at gamers, and I think they were looking at Gamergate and the way that went down, and how that you can create narratives out of that, and how you
Bannon loved games. Gamers didn't. He loved games. He was obsessed with game culture. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And what is this? This is a game, isn't it? That's the point. That they're dropping sort of ideas and ideologues and gurus and paths for you to follow. They're dropping them in. I've said this before, right? Okay, this is what my sort of take is on the sort of the mind control at the minute, right? It's the combination of social media and this idea that on social media everyone's opinion is valid and everyone's got to have an opinion, and you're there with an audience, right? They've been studying sentient world, like all these programs like Sentient World Simulation and SMISC and Earnest Voice and JTRIG, who are basically looking at how people work on the internet and how people interact with each other on the internet. And what they've done is they've created this hyper reality, because most people live or interact, particularly with these ideas, on the internet. So you're getting your information from these internet nodes. You basically, everyone's their own roving reporter. You're the hero, right, in your own sort of like choose your adventure. And you've got to, your job as this hero and as part of your identity is to spread truth and to send this information to all the people and to teach them and to create this benevolent society of understanding. Like, and where are you getting that information from? It's being fed to you. And this also binds in with the sort of way that people act and behave when they're online, because of the fact that you're not looking at people's eyes, you're not looking at people's faces, you're not seeing the body reactions, you've got that isolation, you've got that separation, you've also got an audience watching you. You act in a way that you would not act in real life. And so the manner of discourse, the manner of understanding, the manner of basically taking in and giving out information has been fundamentally changed by the main way that actually people interact nowadays. And that's how it's so easy to go down these rabbit holes, or to basically, this is the thing. I saw somebody, it's just I'm getting off of this, of Facebook, I'm going on Twitter and Parler where the truth warriors are. It's like, I beg your pardon, you're doing what? Like, oh my dear fella, I'm sure that is how you fondly imagine yourself, but you've been riled up, like, to play their game, and it's like, do you know what I mean, John? I really think that is the thing, that basically they're basically hacking into people's brains and sort of directing their personality and trying to get these people to become versions of themselves online. And the problem is that once you're a version of yourself online, you say more extreme things, and it's easier to believe more extreme things and to get yourself into more extreme frames of mind where all of a sudden, I can't even speak to you because I'm a truth warrior and I'm out. Do you know? Does any of this make any sense?
No, no, you're 100% right. I mean, how long throughout history have they done that, right? But now you have anonymity. So since you have anonymity, you're more emboldened to do or say whatever you want to do. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, look at Operation Mockingbird, for example. How long have we known, Neil, that the at least within the United States, the intelligence agencies controlled and steered the Fourth Estate? So of course they controlled and steered the truth movement as well. How could they have not? Not to say that everyone in the truth movement in and of themselves has been steered or corrupted. But a good majority of it is, if the truth movement ever existed in the first place. I mean, it has its basis, you could almost, track back the modern truth movement to Alice Bailey, and her being one of the first, quote-unquote, New Age Theosophist truthers. Yeah. And then you have the John Birch Society and their steering, and you have Scientology of their steering. And so why would, the Scientology be in bed with the Council for National Policy and the John Birch Society? And then you have the Council for National Policy steering it with the John Birch Society and Scientology, among many others, in modern times. I mean, there never was a truth movement, in my opinion, and it's quite sad because, most people that really get out there, that really get, the big names, that it's all by design to be done so. And I'm not going to say there aren't certain big name people that I do like myself. Everybody's going to have the people that they like, right? But, for example, I am a fan of Bill Cooper. Now, granted, Bill Cooper has said some things that I completely 100% disagree on, and I've talked about it on this channel. And I think, Bill Cooper, maybe towards the end, may have been, realizing and putting a whole bunch of things together that he was being controlled by the movers and the shakers that control the truth movement. Who knows? But people, I know pretty much once you get that big, huge platform and you're seen by millions of people, most of the time you're probably compromised by that point. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's so annoying about it is that basically it's like, let's just take the JVS, right? Okay, like their concepts of, like, none dare call it conspiracy and this sort of communist world takeover. Like, there's elements of truth to this, right? Okay, it's just that they flipped it, and rather than said a mixture of different people, including a huge amount of capitalists, they've said communists. Do you know what I mean? And it's that same thing. It's that slanting the narrative. Just get in just before and create the, like, something's going to come out. Sooner or later, people are going to realize that this is indisputable. Rich, powerful people control the world through lots of machinations and mechanisms, a lot of which are hidden. Bilderberg, La Circle, CNP, Council of Foreign Relations, and Trilateral Commission, and all of these things, right? Okay, but if you can get in on the ground floor and you can say, but it's a communist plot, or it's a this plot, or it's a what, do you see what, and you can just shift it strangely away, and then you start to look at, say, the John Birch Society and go, well, these are all rich industrialists, right? Okay, this is like, of course they're gonna like want you to believe that communism is bad. Let me just get that out of the clip because I get accused of being a communist like for a lot, and it's like I'm into mind control. Do you think I've not looked at what happened in Stalinistic Russia? Like it's like come on, like, but it's a snarl word. We're really back to Roy Cohn and the McCarthy and basically, you know, Reds under the bed and like just using the phrase "he's a communist." It's become people have got sick of Muslim. Like, oh, he's a secret Muslim. Oh, he's a secret this, blah 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 blah. Everyone's bored of that. It's a bit, you know, passé, isn't it now? Like, let's be honest, it's very, very 2000s. Let's go proper retro. Let's just say everything's a communist plot. Like, and it's like, it's not though, is it? Like, this isn't going to result in the dismantling of the banks and, like, you know, the base and the superstructure becoming combined. There is going to be no redistribution of the wealth. It's just a snarl word. It's just, here's the thing to focus you on, and it's like the monster in the woods, or what's his name in 1984? It's the Goldberg.
Emmanuel Goldstein.
Goldstein, thank you. Yeah, you're an agent of Goldstein. It's like it's not. It doesn't have to be real. It just has to be something to focus people's attention on.
Your day of hate, your day of rage, you know.
Yeah.
Don't look at us. Don't look at us, you know. Don't look at the corrupt world government, you know.
Yeah.
Me being as Christian, you know, don't look at Satan, you know. It's Satan's biggest deception is to make everyone believe, you know, that he doesn't exist. So no. Just realize that it's all good. Just hate your neighbor instead, you know. Just hate your neighbor and your community, and yeah, your neighbor might believe a few different things than you, right? But you know, they're the enemy. We're not the enemy.
Right.
No. We're trying to keep you safe. We're trying to keep you safe and protected. So
right, can anyone explain to me what the Great Reset is?
And in what terms? The way I look at it might be a little bit different. Okay, so the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just because to me that seems to be the latest thing, just a phrase. I'll keep asking people, what is this Great Reset? They go, it's the New World Order now. It's like, right, cool. How does it work? Well, the New World Order is just all your stuff. They're going to take all your stuff, and it's like, right, how does it work? What is it?
So
what is it?
So it's my.
Well, to me. Go on.
No, you go ahead first, Neil. You go ahead first.
Well, it's just that basically, to me, again, it seems like a snarl word. It seems like, again, there'll be an element of truth in it. Like the Fourth Industrial Revolution is the concept that basically, like, which to a degree is inevitable, like, thanks capitalism, that basically there's going to be a degree of automation and lots of people are going to lose their jobs. And basically, you know, it's going to, like, there is currently no real sort of plan to sort of sort this out. Now, the Great Reset, I don't know really what it is, other than it's just think tanks being think tanks and just like saying stuff that probably won't happen. But what sort of like piqued me about this is that basically, so I've watched loads of videos about it. I've watched hour-long videos with people trying to explain it, and it's a circular argument where they say it's the New World Order. And so I looked and said, well, where the hell did this come from? And do you know this was like the first time that people were talking about the Great Reset in a sort of it's a communist takeover. It was when George Floyd was murdered, but basically because of the sort of like the media maul around that, this didn't get seen, and it was actually the CEO of the Heartlands Institute that came out and said, there's this thing called the Great Reset, it's international communism. Now, the Heartlands Institute is fossil fuel. And to me, I had a quick look at it and went, well, they're talking about environmental sort of like oversight and stuff. That's exactly what the fossil fuel industry, specifically the Heartlands Institute, really, really hates. They've got a back record of just creating misinformation and disinformation about things that would mean that they were looked at with oversight and regulation. I said, all right, okay, fine, fair enough. Who was the next person to talk about it? The next person to talk about the Great Reset wasn't until months later. It was Laura Ingraham. And Laura Ingraham is in the pocket of the CMP, Cokes and stuff like that. And again, so it was like, I'm still not exactly understanding what it is. It just sounds like be terrified of this. Next person to talk about it was Candice Owens. Oh, Bullingdon Club married Candice Owens.
Did you say Bannon drugged Mark Judge, the former Gamergate reporter, who was Brett Kavanaugh's friend, out to defend Candace Owens yet again? So that was hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make that note.
No. That's and then the next person to who made a stir of it and sort of popularised it in the UK was that odious weasel James Delingpole, who's just basically completely in the pocket of the far right Tory government, hardcore Brexiteer, works for the Barclay-owned Spectator, friends with other just terrible people like Toby Young and stuff like that. And so I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing the same Coke-influenced people. And just for the fact that basically nobody can actually fully explain to me what it is, or even just give me a vague oversight of what it is without, like, it just leads me to believe that, this is the latest thing, is it? Like,
no, it is the latest thing, but there is something to it, okay? So let me talk about it. So... okay, so my belief is the Great Awakening and the Great Reset they're ultimately the same thing, but they're two polar opposites, okay, of a part of like the world's order plan, right? So on the left you have the Great Reset being pushed by the World Economic Forum and being pushed by Klaus Schwab, who looks like Dr. No mixing with Dr. Evil, kind of having the cat and the turn around in the Bond villain, turn around in the chair and be like, "Woo ha 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 ha!"
Can somebody explain to me what that Flash Gordon sort of coat he wears is about?
It's something, some sort of ritual, something. I don't know what the fuck it is. Maybe someone in the chat can help me out with that, but it's
he looks like Gary Newman.
Yeah, in cars. So I'm watching, I'm watching both sides, and I'm watching people talking about it, and I'm like, okay, so, and so to me, like Seth the Saxon said in the chat, it's kind of like Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, but like on steroids, just to like make most conspiracy-minded people kind of like just be like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Which, I mean, if it was enacted, yes, it would be the worst thing ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, because it would be, lack of a better words, communism, global communism, or globalism. But the thing is to get that polarization in place, because you have, the Great Reset on the left, and you have the Great Awakening on the right with the QAnon phenomenon and everybody waking it up and everything. So you have to have your Bond villain. You have to have you have to have your Emmanuel Goldstein. All right.
Yeah.
So your Emmanuel Goldstein is Klaus Schwab, and just like me, Mark from Housatonic Live and I have done deep dives on Bill Gates, and I'm not excusing anything that Bill Gates has done. I am, however, saying, though, that the man that appears to be above Bill Gates is Warren Buffett.
Yes.
So Bill Gates is your Emmanuel Goldstein, so you don't look at Warren Buffett. That's how this works. All right, so that's so, they're funneling people onto both sides, and they're putting fear on the left. They have pointed that the QAnon people, and granted, yes, you have the people pushing martial law like Flynn and Lynn Wood and all them. Don't get me wrong, but so the right looks at the progressive, your progressive neighbor as the Great Reset communist that's going to take away all your freedoms and put you in a totalitarian government, and they hate you. Okay,
yeah,
and then all the propaganda ops on the left have you look at your conservative right-wing neighbor as being a QAnon supporter that's for martial law and wants military on the streets and Gitmo and guillotines and it's just a nut job. All right, so that's how this is the Great Reset and the Great Awakening. This is what they did to America with their propaganda programs. Is even spreading around the world Now, however, though, I will say, are they not implementing some of their agenda, whether it was Agenda 2020 or Agenda 2030 or the Great Reset, with what's been going around with COVID-19. Yeah, of course they have. Don't get me wrong on that, and they've been doing it ever since. That's their main goal, is to take more of the freedoms that were handed, the freedom that was given to you by God, to restrict it more and more. The Patriot Act hasn't gone away in 2 decades, and it won't.
No. This is a good point, John.
So I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, cower in the corner of my shed because the Klaus Schwab, the Bond villain, is going to destroy everything? Or is my progressive neighbor supposed to, cower because I'm a conservative? And I mean, they know better, obviously, that I'm not a QAnon person, but that they're going to go door to door with right-wing death squads and kill them just because they have progressive views. This is what the world order wants. This is what the Great Awakening is. This is what the Great Reset is. That's what it mainly boils down to, is to deceive humanity into accepting their Luciferian bullshit and division. That's exactly what it is, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's certainly the division, isn't there? And this is the thing, and it is getting more and more pronounced. And these mechanisms are driving people into sort of like stronger and stronger sort of echo chambers as well, aren't they, really? So this is why it's so important that people do actually talk and, are prepared to be told stuff and learn and be wrong, because it's perfectly okay. And just disagree as well. Like, because, again, like, I mean, you must have seen this. This is with no one can disagree, like, at all. Like, it's always a battle, particularly on social media. Like, oh, I don't think this is about COVID. COVID's not been isolated. Well, it has actually. Here you go, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my God, you're an idiot. You're obviously working for George Soros. Like, and it's like, oh, come on. Like, you wouldn't. This is. I've had to say this to certain people, like, on social media. It's like, why are you acting like this, right? Okay, you're not like this about anything else. You're lovely.
And if they were in person with you, they wouldn't be like this either.
Yes, exactly. And that's the important part of this mechanism. Like, this is the point. This is. People are. It's going to be where your real you is online. And do you know what I mean? And the actual you is just the person that does the day job. Like, it's really getting sort of matrixy, where everybody's
subjective reality, right? They want to put you in your avatar so you can act however the government sees fit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then anytime you think anything that's outside of the lines, you're labeled something immediately. And you're pushed into a box.
This is the thing, you're seeing such examples of groupthink and like such ironic, unaware examples of groupthink. People all at a march saying anyone like there's however many people who've all got exactly the same views saying, oh, anyone else is a sheep because their view doesn't correspond to theirs, and they don't see the irony of that. They're basically like, well,
that's why I hated the NPC meme. I thought it was directly leaked by the Central Intelligence Agency, even though they were behind the Velociraptor meme, and that meme was horrible.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't do NPC unless they got better. Maybe they had some help from Cambridge Analytica, for all I know. But that's what the NPC meme was to do, is to dehumanize your fellow man. Oh, they're just a non-playable character because they have different beliefs than me. Who gives a crap about their life when they're killed? That's what that was, and I hated it from day one. I never thought it was a good thing.
I think that's right, John, and I think you might actually be onto something there, because like the velocity on UFOs, and they showed that really crap circular disc that hovered and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like, all right, we'll show you what we've been doing. Like, we made a meme with the Velociraptor. Like, aren't we bad? It's like, it's not what you're doing. You were targeting, micro-targeting people and literally gaming them to work in a particular way in a highly sophisticated manner. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, again, it's that distraction. It's like, oh no, it's like, we're not good at this. We're rubbish at this. But you know, it's crackers, man.
I mean, what about when Recluse told us that Nadim Sawawi, who was the former head of La Cercle, and is running the COVID-19 vaccine rollout for the NHS in the UK?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you would think progressives in the United Kingdom would take a pause once they realize that the head of La Cercle is in charge of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout.
John, people don't know what La Cercle is, so
that is true. That is true.
Your audience might, but the people who've kindly tuned in to listen to me possibly don't know what La Cercle is, and I think we probably should explain, because it's like, well, it's Bilderberg, isn't it? It's a different type of Bilderberg that is so off the radar that most people don't even know that it exists, but it's had such people in it as is it Rory Stewart was the chairman of it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And which other Tory? There was another Tory MP. Was it Nigel Lamont was in them?
I believe so, yes. We'd have to go back and look. But they're pretty much like the Bilderberg of the right wing of the world order. Okay? Yes. That pretty much sums up La Cercle. And we know even less about La Cercle, except a few handful of things that have been leaked in a book that was written by, what's his name? I've read it.
Alan Clark.
No, The Circle, Panay.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Cercle, a teacher. What was his first name? David Teacher, I think. Yes, David Teacher.
You put me onto that book, man.
So very few people know about La Cercle. Very few people know, because it's even more secretive. So you think because it's even more secretive, where everybody knows about Bilderberg now, it's not when you talked about Bilderberg 20 years ago, like Josh Reeves has said, yeah, maybe people would be like, what are you talking about? You're a crazy conspiracy theorist, right? But now, however, everyone, like, you can, like, they go and tell you when the Bilderberg meetings are, and people go and cover them, and they see who goes in, and they see who goes out, and stuff. Well, now, what about La Cercle? The guy who was the head of La Cercle just last year, he is the head of the UK vaccine distribution.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. If you look at the people who are the chairman, like over the past, ever since, there's some familiar names. It's Antoine Pinay, Jean Violet, Brian Crozier, who I'm not sure that is, Julian Amy, I'm not sure who that is.
Was over there.
Yeah. But the chairman have been Jonathan Aitken, Norman Lamont, Michael Ancram, Rory Stewart, Nadim Zahawi, all Tory MPs. And all by sheer coincidence, I'm sure, Brexiteers, which is interesting to say the least. But obviously, since we've been on last time, the ICO released their report into Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
And obviously, they found absolutely no evidence at all that Cambridge Analytica interfered or affected the Brexit vote. None at all. It wasn't connected. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, Tucker Carlson just said that it was. He compared the belief that Cambridge Analytica influenced our election, or Russia influenced our election, or the combination of the two, was just as much as a conspiracy theory that 9/11 was an inside job.
Well, I think you may well. And you might be right.
And YouTube banned. His thing was YouTube banned anyone questioning the narrative about the election, but left Burmes's documentary Loose Change up. So Tucker's full of crap. He's really full of crap. Cambridge Analytica, Russia had nothing to do with influencing the election back in 2016. And 9/11 wasn't an inside job, Tucker. Really? So.
Well, Russia jumped on it quite late because Russia just liked sowing seeds of chaos.
Oh yeah, I mean, anybody who thinks it's completely a Russian job is ridiculous. It's the silliest thing. That's the thing is you'll see like Louise Minch on Twitter, right? And that whole QAnon crowd, and they're like, it's all Russia, and I'm like, well, no, there's the military, the United States military, and the United States intelligence services definitely, and I mean, among other foreign interests, invested interests in Israel and the Mercers and whomever, definitely
Mm.
did have a lot to do with the influence of MI5. The,
Oh,
the
totally, yeah.
elections. During 2016. Like, I'm sorry, you guys. Like, there's enough information on there to prove that to be true. You can't deny that. So, but they want to blame nothing but Russia, and I find that extremely like the same thing with Parler. You have them going, well, Parler's
Yeah.
strictly a Russian operation. And then you
Yeah.
have people like Mike Rothschild on Twitter, and Mike Rothschild on Twitter has had interactions with Thomas Schoenberger. He goes, well, Dan Bongino and Ron Watkins, who's Jim Watkins' son, and Jim Watkins was one of the founders of Akoon, arguing about Parler, then there's no way it could be a Russian operation or that Russia was involved with Parler. So you have the two full polar opposites of one another, right? Which should tell you right there that both of those cancel each other out. Likely they're just complete and utter bullcrap, and it's somewhere in the middle. Russia probably did have some, involvement with Parler. Okay, maybe they just ran stronger operations on Parler after it's been established. We don't know what to the degree that is, but to say that there's none, or to say that it's all Russia, when you have the Mercers coming out and say we funded Parler, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I mean, obviously the Russia thing is like it's been overblown as a bit of a distraction, but like you can watch Russia Today. I don't know if you get a different version of it in America, but
no, we get the same one. It just says down at the bottom, like it does say for the BBC or Al Jazeera. Russia on YouTube at least it says Russia Today is partly funded by the Russian government.
It's true, and it's blatantly trolling the UK and US governments. It's such a propaganda tool for the Russian government, and it just exists just to prod and just to sow that tiny seed of like discontent and like, hang on, what's going on? Our government's doing what? And it's like, and again, some of what they say is actually true, and some of it is very much designed as a sort of weapon of chaos. But hey ho.
Hey,
anyway,
Neil, Jolly asked in the chat real quick, what do you know about the Order of the Nine Angles?
I don't know about the Order of the Nine Angles, I'm afraid.
Okay. I didn't think you did, but she wanted me to ask you that. Okay. Recluse and Recluse and Lee Veltman and George from CabDev.org know a lot about them.
It sounds like a Freemasonic thing.
It's like they were a left-hand path satanic group based in the United Kingdom, and they were allies with Adam Waffen and everything.
Oh,
so
hang on, are these the guys that were connected to the bloke that was in Combat 18 or helped found Combat 18?
Okay, I don't know about that.
Combat 18's a far-right neo-Nazi group that was actually formed in the, or part of it was formed in the town 5 minutes away from where I live. They were 18 being AH, Adolf Hitler. They had the Totenkopf as their symbol. But it transpired that some of their leadership were involved with satanic cults in Germany and in Europe and various places, and in America, I think. Might be a different one, but anyway. But yeah, I'll ask for Recluse about that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think you might want to look that up just because the Order of the Nine Angles is based in the United Kingdom. So it might be interesting. So
I've not done anything to upset them, have I?
No, I don't think you did. At least I hope not. Hey, I probably upset Scientology. I'm probably less listed as a suppressive person, so it is what it is. What about?
Oh, sorry, we were talking about the Oh yeah, no, it is David Myatt. Sorry, this. So I'm just looking up this Nazi Satanist group. Blah 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 blah. Oh, hang on. Right. Okay. Yeah, they seem quite serious. Sorry, we were talking about the Cambridge Analytica report, weren't we?
Yeah. So kind of how they and look, if I myself might have different views on the like Brexit, for example. I can see the argument, and I am more sympathetic to the argument. Oh, Nine Angels, not Nine Angles. Okay, Order of the Nine Angels. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jolly. The Order of the Nine
It
Angels.
is them. It is them. It's the ones that are connected to Combat 18,
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you
to
have
a
heard
bloke
about.
called David Mayat.
Um,
And they also influenced the nail bomber David Copeland. Yeah, I know these guys.
so you know of them. You don't know them personally.
No, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
make sure, but because I don't want anybody to get mistaken. My question is okay. So what about me, someone who I do. Can see the argument for UK autonomy separating from the European Union, Neil.
Okay.
I could see the argument for that. But then again, I could also say that the United States of America was kind of one of the first unions, right? Because I'm not, my last name is Brisson. My family has been here since the 1700s. I've lost my French identity, and now I'm an American because I've been here for, my family's been here for, I grew up here, and my family's been here for 300 years. Okay?
Yeah.
So do you understand what I like?
Well,
Can you see the average person in UK who even though yes, there's propaganda on there,
Yeah.
you're gonna have propaganda for pro Brexit and anti Brexit too, But can you see you empathize with someone who in the
I
UK who believes that that you understand what I'm saying? Am I making any
I
sense?
certainly can, particularly in the way that it was sold, because it was sold that basically the European Union was imposing rules on us, was imposing laws on us, was stopping us from doing certain things, stopping us from trading with certain other countries, was dictating who and what could be allowed in our country, was a massive drain on our resources, and actually did us no good at all. So I can sympathise, because basically that was what was sold to people. I don't tend to agree, and to be quite honest,
But what if someone is a
uh,
nationalist, like a civic
then
nationalist, okay, and they believe that there shouldn't be like, for example, I'm not a fan of us being in the United Nations myself.
okay,
So what about something like that? Not that.
well, that's an argument. It's an argument, I suppose, but I just don't see any benefit to it other than to be able to say we are distinct from that. There's no tangible benefit that I can see for leaving the European Union, and there's dozens and dozens of negative things that will come from leaving the European Union. And from what I've looked at it, all of the sort of arguments that were made that they control our laws, that wasn't true. That they control our borders, that wasn't true. That they destroyed our fishing industry, that wasn't true. What happens is that basically English companies, very, very wealthy English companies, have sold these fishing plots to Spain and Spanish and French fishermen, who have undercut the British fishermen. So it's absolutely nothing to do with that. And fishing is like, I feel for people involved in that industry. I think in the last for example, we've just spent £22 billion on a track and trace device that doesn't work in the UK. Like £22 billion, in order for the fishing industry to make £22 billion, it would have to operate at record levels for the next 50 years. It's been turned into it's being sort of expressed particularly in the British press as like, well, this is the make or break of the country, and it's really not that high on the list of money makers for us. And so this is the problem. And again, I initially voted Remain purely on the Working Time Directive, because I've told this story many times. The girl I was going out with at the time, her sister was a solicitor who was working with the unions in the UK, taking the British government to court because the British government had, on the sly, tried to get rid of certain provisions for, say, paid holiday and overtime and stuff like that, which are sort of protected by law under the European Working Time Directive, sorry. And that I was like, why does the British government want to remove this? Now, again, like, people may disagree with me, but I think I might be proved right. The plan for Brexit was to get you all hyped on this nationalism tip, tell you that it was going to be brilliant, say that we could do all these fantastic things, And to my mind, the plan was always, has always been, was always, and is still to crash out on no deal. And the point of crashing out on no deal was, and this sounds horrible, but it was really to put us over a barrel so that the IFT and the IEA, driven by essentially the Heritage Foundation and the CMP, could get their trade deal. And that was the whole point. The whole point was to put the UK into a position where it was dependent on an American trade deal. And if we crash out on no deal, we are still going to be dependent on an American trade deal. The problem is that this trade deal was like a legacy thing for Trump. He was doing it, it was integral to Brexit. Cambridge Analytica got Trump elected and they got Brexit. And the whole point of it was manufacturing this position so that the UK could be taken over, essentially, by a trade deal. And the problem is that Joe Biden isn't actually that interested in a trade deal. So we're now dangling out on a limb without even the rubbish safety net that we were previously accorded. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's appalling as well. Basically, the government is not being fair to anyone. It's not being fair to businesses. It's not being fair to anyone, because we've got no clue what's going on. I've got a friend that works in sort of customs recruitment, and firms are not prepared for what's going to happen, principally because they don't know what rules they've got to follow yet. And we work on a just-in-time network system. So basically, everything comes through the ports, and everything, is sort of run like clockwork to ensure that we have things in our shops. And all of a sudden, it's going to be far, far more complicated to get these things in and out of the country. As I say, at the minute, people really don't know what the actual rules are going to be. There's always been a problem with Ireland and Northern Ireland, in as much as basically if Northern Ireland is left in the EU to any degree, then that has welched on the promises to Northern Irish Brexit voters who believe themselves to be part of mainland England or the United Kingdom. I forget. I don't know the terms.
You're gonna have Ireland secession, like we're having secession here in the United States.
Hopefully, I'd support that 100%. It's outrageous what we did. That's ours, by the way, and then we'll just give you a little bit of it back. Outrageous. And the problem, and you're probably going to get Scottish independence, or at least a move for Scottish independence. And
then Scottish blood, McNatt.
Well, then we're totally knackered because all the oil and fish is in Scotland.
Yeah, it's all a mess. I mean, usually when we're just talking about this stuff, they're going to go ahead and do whatever they want in the end, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess not always though, if we raise a big enough stink on certain things, maybe that does make them, at least wait a little while before they try to enact it later. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the report was written by I forget his name. I can't remember his name, but you can look it up. But he's a member of the ERG, or the Economic Research Group, which is Jacob Rees-Mogg, hardcore Brexiteer connected to Turning Point UK, and the IFT and IEA. And they're basically hardcore Brexiteers. So it would have been fairly embarrassing for a member of the ERG to have said in this report that, actually, it was all done on lies and bluster about 2 months before it was actually supposed to happen. So I'm not saying that he was influenced by that, but his report is a tissue of lies. Interestingly in it, he notes that Aggregate IQ, the Canadian company, exists, and that they held all data sets for the DUP and UKIP and Leave.eu. But he doesn't make the connection that Cambridge Analytica... And so it's a bit of sort of shifty wordplay, because they say, Cambridge Analytica had nothing to do with Brexit. Aggregate IQ certainly had a lot of stuff to do with Brexit, but because they're in Canada, we can't actually investigate them. But it's all right, John, because they asked them if they'd done anything illegal, and they reassured them that they hadn't. So, that's all right, isn't it? So that's how the report came out, that basically Cambridge Analytica had nothing to do with it. Aggregate IQ had a bit of circumstantial evidence, but they've assured us they didn't do anything with it. And it seems to have missed the point that Aggregate IQ and Cambridge Analytica are the same company. At one point, Aggregate IQ was listed as Cambridge Analytica's Canadian office. They had the same IP number on one of their websites, or they had the same server on their websites. Cambridge Analytica literally set up Aggregate IQ's server number, and Aggregate IQ were also registered to Robert Mercer via Cambridge Analytica. And then, rather embarrassingly, after the report came out, and people like Andrew Neil and stuff like that were on Twitter going, oh, see, blah, blah, blah. Brittany Kaiser who used to work for Cambridge Analytica, released a series of contracts between UKIP, Cambridge Analytica, Leave.eu, Cambridge Analytica, and the DUP and Cambridge Analytica, proving without a shadow of a doubt that Cambridge Analytica were hired to work for the Leave campaign. I mean, again, this had already come out because it was a bit rich, because in the investigation that was done a couple of years ago, they described the stories that were created by Cambridge Analytica in order to promote this sort of, well, it was at the time, it was a fear of Muslims. And principally, one of the main ones was the idea that Sweden had turned into the rape capital of the world. And another one, there was that Germany had bowed down to Sharia law and allowed marriage of children, which, and obviously neither of those were true.
So let me ask you this. What about Joe Zamel and the Israeli side to Cambridge Analytica with Psy Group and Wikistrat?
Oh, that was you have to remind me on this bit, because I do recall that bit. There was the guy that what was it? Yeah, what was I know the Black Cube bit. This was the other guy, wasn't it? Didn't he work for the Trump administration for a time being?
Joel Zamel offered his services to Jared Kushner.
That was it.
And so I just didn't know if you had come across anything in your research in Cambridge Analytica about Joel Zamel, because Psy Group had
Psy Group, that was it. Yes.
Yeah, Psy Group had come together with Cambridge Analytica in a partnership to platform boost Trump on Facebook. And so you have that kind of like Israeli Mossad aspect, and a lot of people also don't mention this too as well, that after the Trump election, the SCL Group won a $500,000 contract from the State Department in February 2017, aiming at providing target audience research according to federal records.
Yeah. They've done a few contracts for the government, SCL, and for the UK government as well. Like, it's I mean, it's a very poorly concealed secret that they've been doing work for them. Like, and again, they're like a Stratfor, really, aren't they? Really, like, they're a sort of non-governmental organisation that does government work and only government work. And yeah, I mean, I had known about the Psy Group, but I'd probably not known or not been aware of the significance of that to the degree that you are. Like, obviously, the other one is Black Cube.
Well, I mean, Zamel met with, so it was Eric Prince, George Nader, the convicted pedophile.
Yeah.
I want to say Donald Trump Jr. And I want to say Miller. And that was before the election. And then after the election, it was Nader, Bannon, and Kushner met with Zamel.
Well, that would make sense.
I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense.
And Zamel also had contacts with Michael Flynn.
And Flynn was on the board of Cambridge Analytica.
That is correct, yes. And he didn't disclose it in his financial disclosure forms, and they had to go back and disclose it afterwards. And yeah. So.
And he's also CMP, isn't he?
Flynn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I mean, that's the connection, isn't it? Like, but I mean, that was the crazy thing. I mean, the Black Cube thing, that was they pushed Orban. They literally got Viktor Orban elected almost as a sort of favour to Benjamin Netanyahu, because apparently Orban and old Bibi are mates.
Well, who would have ever
Like,
thought that? Now, Bannon's calling out Kissinger,
Soros.
uh,
Kissinger. Yeah.
and about China, but then framing China as the real bad guys. But Bannon would never call out Israel because Bannon
Right.
really loves those gladiator schools that he runs down there in Italy. He's very much
Yeah.
in league with you could say Jesuit powers, and Zionist powers too as well with the Mercers. So,
Mm.
Bannon's never our guy, never will be our guy, just because he called out Kissinger, so freaking what? So.
Oh yeah. Again, Bannon, he just knows what to say. It's the same thing. It's like Trump called out some people. He knew what to say, and bizarrely, once they'd said that thing, it was like, right, brilliant. We don't need to look at anything else that they've done because they've said that thing. And it's like, wow, like that's some strong messaging that their campaign's got there, really, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's really hammered it home.
Yeah, very much
But
so. There's one thing I want to share with you real quick. I don't think you can see my
Mhm.
screen though. Hold on, let me share my screen. I should have been sharing it all along. I'm sorry, Neil.
Sorry?
Here is now just to give a little bit of laughs. Even I laughed at this. Now I despise Ted Cruz. They were who Cambridge Analytica, if you believe the narrative, supposedly picked for president.
Yeah.
If you believe that narrative, it may or may not be true. Who knows? I'm trying to find it. Let me put in Zodiac. That'll come up. Gotta leave people to laugh. This is a lot of laugh. Neil.
Ted Cruz, imagine that though. Like, you're picked to be the candidate for president. Then all of a sudden, somebody that's insulted your wife takes over, and you have to basically be his cheerleader for the
And
next.
someone that says that your dad, Rafael Cruz, was involved in the JFK assassination, which could have happened.
Yeah.
Could, knowing Rafael Cruz, could. But
Knowing Trump's background, he probably knows who was involved in the JFK assassination.
so this was funny when people were saying that Ted Cruz looked like the Zodiac killer. And
Yeah.
he owns it from time to time when there was a new news story that got released that they had solved the code break, the new cipher. So, Cruz is, Andrew Feinberg sends him a message, care to comment to Cruz about the Zodiac killer's been cracked? And then he posts the whole nothing to see here, please disperse from A Naked Gun of Leslie Nielsen, which I'm a huge fan of Leslie Nielsen. The Canadian actor. But he's actually deaf, by the way, Neil.
Leslie Nielsen?
Yes, he was. He was deaf.
Oh, right.
But yeah, so it's just funny. And they put a genius. These code breakers just cracked the Zodiac killer's infamous 340 cipher 51 years after it's first published. And Ted Cruz tweeted, "Uh-oh." I can't stand Ted Cruz, but a funny's a funny. All right, he's owning it. So it is what it is. It's pretty fucking funny. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that is good actually. Fair play to him.
But is there anything else you want to say in closing, Neil? Anything else you can think of? Definitely glad you came on today.
Oh no, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Sorry it's been so long. We've both been busy, and every time I could have you on, something came up. So I'm sorry. It's been a while. Hopefully, we'll make the next time after the holidays much shorter.
Yeah.
But anything you want to say in closing to everyone?
No, just be a bit aware of what's going on with this Brexit. If you're in the UK, like it looks like it's
no exit,
yeah.
no deal Brexit, right?
I'm afraid it's looking that way. But again, I strongly contend that basically that was their plan all along. The other sort of strong indicator to that is that there's a series of Tory donors that have basically like put bets or they've put options that will pay off strongly if we go out on no deal as well, and that's it's a bit too much of a coincidence that all these people directly connected with the people who are behind making the deal seem to, for some reason, not be not being terribly confident in it actually panning out in the way that they sold it. And if you could also just look at the number of people that left as well, like there's a whole list of people that voted for Brexit that have up sticks and moved to Europe or they've moved the businesses to Europe. Rolls-Royce was the most recent one, wasn't it? Like they've moved all the owner of the current owner for them was hardcore Brexiteer, and basically he's like at the very last minute he's decided to move his factory to Europe, and like it's because it looks like we're making ourselves a pariah state. We're gonna institute economic sanctions on ourselves, like, which is just stupid. Which is really, really stupid. But hey ho, at least blue passports.
You get your COVID tracking from Palantir. Get your shots brought to you by La Circle, and I keep saying La Circle, and get your COVID tracking. So looks like you guys are moving into a totalitarian state, sponsored by the right wing of the world order, when we all were told that it was coming from the Great Reset and the left wing. So
it's almost as if it was a massive, massive bluff, wasn't it, to distract everybody? And quite a lot of people appear to have fallen for it and still falling for it.
Yeah, it's they're all corrupt in my opinion, and it's truly sad. It really is, and I hope people enjoy their holidays coming up. Hope people have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Enjoy the time with your family, because who knows what next year is going to look like when this year was a complete crap show. Let's continue to trust in the Lord. It's all we can do. So, one last thing, I guess, Neil, before you go. One last thing. I know it was supposed to be your closing statement, but I got one last question.
That's all right.
I thought of something, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Do you think the QAnon movement is do you think, since Biden is going to be nominated by the Electoral College on Monday, and Pence is going to certify it, and people are going to get super butthurt about that, just like I kept telling them that once I saw that Kirkland and Ellis came out a few weeks back that the fix was in, the Supreme Court was not going to rule for Trump, and that's what happened. So do you think QAnon, do you think that some people are going to become disingenuous when Biden's president and they're rolling out the shot that Trump helped make, and he's going to be taking credit for it all next year, that it was my shot through Operation Warp Speed? And do you think some of the true believers are going to realize that they've been duped, or do you think they're going to quadruple down?
I think a little bit of both. I think that some people will obviously start realizing that, none of the things that were supposed to happen have happened, but that's been happening for 4 years. You're already seeing it, and you've got groups like the Proud Boys and stuff like that going out and fighting, and you've got if you watch the news and you watch people did and various other outlets. The strong belief among a certain core is very difficult to see how broad this is, but it certainly seems broad, is that the election was totally rigged, stolen, and that they've been cheated. And that is obviously being pushed. I mean, the Stop the Steal was Roger Stone, and was it the Mercers were involved with that as well?
It was John Kenneth Blackwell.
DeVos?
It was John Kenneth Blackwell. It was Ali Alexander. It was a good chunk of the Council for National Policy.
Right.
Yes, they were behind hashtag Stop the Steal.
Right, and all they're doing there, basically, again, is feeding into this cult-like idea, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be attached to Trump anymore, because, who knows what's going to happen to Trump. But it's being fermented. It's really being fermented. No, is the short answer. Is the basically a huge amount of people are going to never let this go. They're going to say we were cheated out of this election, and it's going to drive them even more to a partisan sort of thing. And I think that's very, very dangerous. And I think that it's irresponsible. And I think that the people who are pushing that know it's dangerous and irresponsible, and frankly they don't really care, because again that chaos is good. It's very difficult to argue against somebody when they're it's again it's building that cult mentality, and it's so you do realize that there's no aliens living in that volcano or whatever, but what about this? And it's like the Gish Gallop. Like, it's just basically, there's so much waves of bullshit and disinformation and lies, and this narrative, this heroic martyr narrative that's being built up, and nobody's going to say, or well, not nobody, but like there's a strong portion of people that will never ever go, yeah, we lost, didn't we? Yeah, no, we just lost it. It happens sometimes. Like, they're just going to stick to the we were cheated, and that justifies our righteous indignation and our anger, because basically, we're fighting against the deep state, and the deep state can't. Did you deep state? Okay, well, we'll be hiding in the woods and keeping our powder dry. I mean, that's the mentality.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that you're going to end up with people calling for martial law. Josh Reeves said many years ago that Alex Jones was going to be the Pied Piper to the FEMA camps, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I could not believe that. I was so astonished, because I'd missed all that, and I listened to you on Billy's show, which was excellent. And my God, what on earth is going on? Like, that is literally how far people have got, where it's like, just a little bit of martial law, all right, okay, because like
just limited, just limited suspension. It's like there is no limited suspension, just for a limited amount of time. It's limited. It's we still did away with we're not going through the new normal, and we did eventually did away with the Patriot Act. I mean, am I right, Neil? I mean,
well, it's the same mechanism though. It's like, I know Brexit will be bad, but not for me. I know the Tories are bad, right, okay, but not for me. I know this is going to be bad, right, okay, but not for me. It's like, why do you think not for you? Where does everyone get this exceptionalism? And it's a thing that runs through American society, and it runs through UK society, like that, where for some reason we think we're a bit cheeky, and we can kind of, that doesn't really apply to us though, does it? Because we're the UK. Have you seen our empire? Like, it was the shit, man. Like, we can, like, which is exactly what's going on with Brexit. Basically, what we've said, like, the reason the negotiations is going to fail is because one of the red lines of the English negotiation is we don't have to support or be involved with any regulation involved in the EU. And it's like, right, okay, but we still want to have full access and trade. It's like, so sorry, what you're saying is you want to still be part of the club, but you don't want to obey any of the rules. Yeah, and you don't want to pay. No. So it's like, this is an old sort of like analogy, but it rings true. I don't want to be part of the gym anymore. All right, that's fine. Okay, but I'm still going to come in. No, I don't think you will. And I'm still going to use the pool. Well, no, you're not going to use the pool unless you pay. It's like, well, no, I want to. Otherwise, you're not being fair in your negotiation. And also what's happened today is that Boris Johnson's been snubbed twice by Angela Merkel and Macron, because he realises that... Sorry?
Andrew, Macron would call himself Jupiter, so I just call him Jupiter.
Oh, does he? And,
the former Rothschild banker... the head of my native land, France. God, I can't stand Macron. I can't stand any of them, but he really gets on my nerves.
Yes, he does. They seem to have a tradition for being president and then being investigated for corruption shortly after leaving office.
Yes, that's true, Neil.
So, we'll see if he keeps up that tradition. But basically what he did is he's failed. So he's speaking to Ursula von der Leyen, or whatever her name is, and then basically like that sort of all crumbles because Boris Johnson's being completely he's asking for something that cannot be delivered, and he knows this. And then he's tried to phone France and Germany on the sly to say, we can still be mates though, can't we? We can still do trade deals and stuff like that. We can talk about this separately to the EU. And France and Germany have obviously turned around and gone, no, we're in the EU, mate. You can't do this. You need to speak to the head of the EU. And it's just ridiculous. Exactly what's going to happen is that basically, like, Boris Johnson's going to frame this as, I really tried. I tried everything. But the EU were just being unreasonable, and they wanted terms that would have crippled us financially, which will be his excuse for crippling us financially.
So I want to finish. You want to see Michael Flynn tell Alex Jones? Actually, I'm not even going to tell you. I want to get your opinion of it first, and I'll give you mine, okay?
Go on. Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it playing the volume? All right, hold on. Let me get it. Might have to reload everything because I had to change. Oh, it's because it's muted down here. My bad. You haven't seen this clip yet of Flynn with Jones, have you? At the Jericho
No,
launch?
no, I haven't.
All right. Hold on, let me start from the very beginning. Get the volume up higher.
It's crazy. I'm scared. We're gonna win. What? I mean, you scared? Taking my hair? Yeah, it's funny, man.
Oh, I enjoy it.
Let's play it at the beginning one last time.
It's crazy. I'm scared. We're gonna win. What?
Don't be scared, we're gonna win.
Taking my hair? Yeah, it's funny, man.
So what do you think?
What is he? Well, they obviously know each other, and Flynn's trying to pretend that he doesn't know
Exactly! That's exactly what I freaking thought of the moment I saw that video.
him. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, clearly. Yeah, Michael Flynn's a bit more sort of savvy. It's like, will you go away with him? And you can see that Alex Jones is a little bit sort of, he's probably pissed, to be quite honest. He drinks quite a lot of vodka nowadays, Alex Jones, and this is why he's sort of being a bit slippery, a bit sloppy. But yeah, no, they clearly know each other. And and Michael Flynn's like,
He's like, not in public.
Like,
Not in public, Alex. God. Not in public. You're ruining everything. Get away. Leave me alone.
Exactly. And you can almost see that as well by the sort of, you can see Alex Jones sort of like, he freezes and he can tell he's done something wrong and he's a bit ashamed and a bit embarrassed. And so he tries to play it off like, oh, you're scared. Don't be scared. We're going to win. Oh, you're not scared to shake my hand in public. And he's playing it off as if because I'm the big crazy Alex Jones, not because you know me. Yeah. Also, for the record, Owen Schroyer looks like a toddler in Abraham Lincoln cosplay.
Oh, Neil. I'm not gonna make fun of his look. It's just, all right, everybody. Take care. Anything you want to tell Neil where everybody can find you? By the way.
Yeah, neilsandismike@droda.com or hit me up on Facebook.
Yes, and fight with him. Neil loves to fight. So
I don't.
I know you don't. I just mess with you. All right, Neil, I'm glad. All right, everybody.
I'm just blessed with a skill for it.
Yes. You're just yes.
I'm like the reluctant ninja.
Yes. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye.